All right. Well, welcome to EpICMavs, everybody. For our funding panel this week, we have Shane Brooks from First Financial Bank, Jeff McGee from UTA representing the Mavs pitch today, and then Cindy from the SBA, which is a Small Business Association. So I have some questions for them, but feel free to put any of your own questions in the chat, and we will get to those as well. But we'll be talking all about resources available to entrepreneurs who are starting their funding journey for their either idea or further down the line company. So to get everybody to start off on the same page, Shane, Jeff, Cindy, I think let's start with just an overview of your organization. What resources are available? Is it capital? Is it coaching? What is available? We'll start there, maybe do a minute for each of those. So let's see. Cindy, let's start with yours. Will you give us a quick overview?
Okay, I sure will. I am a business advisor with the Small Business Development Center in Tarrant County. We are part of America's SBDC, and we are part of the North Texas. Our regional office is North Texas, based out of Dallas County Colleges. And so we are based out of Tarrant County College here. And the way the SBDC works is we are grant funded through the SBA, the state of Texas, and Tarrant County College District. We provide advising services at no cost. So we have resource partners, Shane and his organization's one of them, of course. And so we work with lenders. We work with what we call our CDFIs. We work with CPAs, attorneys. We have a lot of resources available to us that we can tap into for our clients.
Wonderful. Thank you, Cindy. And I think that leads us into Shane really nicely. Want to give us a quick overview?
Yeah, nice transition. Yeah, so my name is Shane Brooks. I'm a commercial lender at First Financial Bank here in Fort Worth. And pretty much the way that the bank will kind of, partner in with all this stuff, the bank will serve as the lender. So in terms of the SBDC and how that partners, we are able to offer SBA guaranteed loans, and we can get into those a little bit later, but that is pretty much the bread and butter for a startup company is an SBA guaranteed loan. But other than just the lending side of things, where the bank comes into play for a startup is, what to do with the funds that you have, getting set up with checking accounts, getting set up with how to send a wire to someone, and ordering checks, just kind of the simple basic things. So really that's kind of how the bank comes into play. And overall, that's being able to build a good foundation with a banker at the beginning, starting point of your journey. Building your company is incredibly valuable.
Wonderful. Thank you, Shane. And cool, I have some additional questions off of what you just said, so I'm excited to lead into that later. But Jeff, welcome. Give us an overview.
Thank you very much, and I'm happy to be here. I'm Jeff McGee, and I'm an associate professor in the Department of Management at UTA, and I was invited to talk about Mav Pitch. And it's an exciting program that we offer at the university, and it was created in the fall of 2018, and it's designed to nurture entrepreneurship here on campus. And it's a series of classes, training sessions, one-on-one tutoring or mentoring, and then it culminates in the pitch competition, which is what Mav Pitch is. And we typically award several $100,000 a year. Since its inception, I believe that we've awarded a little over $800,000, and we're getting ready to enter into this semester's pitch in a couple of weeks. And it's open to all students on campus, and they can pitch whatever business idea they have, and it's quite a bit of fun.
Wonderful. And Jeff, I'm going to have you in just a little bit. We're going to go more in depth on that process, the qualifications, what steps. But first, let's start off with Shane. Let's see. My first question to you, and then Cindy, you'll get the same question. But for both of y'all's organizations, what are the steps that founders need to take to be qualified or to set up a meeting with you? And let's see, Shane, we can start with you.
Yeah, that's a great question. The qualification side is probably the boogeyman, right? Everyone gets worried about, oh, I don't know if I'll be able to qualify for a loan, that kind of thing. And whenever we're dealing with startup companies, qualifying for a traditional bank loan is pretty tricky. So that's when, Cynthia comes into play, being able to go into an advisor to learn how to work through basically small business development, things like that, helps you be able to get into an SBA loan. In terms of funding, the SBA loan programs, the 7A specifically, helps kind of bridge the gap between a startup company that may not be able to, get qualified for a traditional loan, and loans or companies that are more seasoned, have some historical data and everything like that. But truly, just from a qualification standpoint, when banks look at it from a traditional form of financing, what they're looking for is some historical information, which is very important, and just a credit history on the borrower. For startups, obviously, we don't have that, right? So what that kind of comes into with the SBA is very projection driven, being able to figure out, how the product being implemented into the market is going to look and everything like that. And being able to have some advisors like Cynthia is incredibly valuable and helps kind of bridge that gap.
Wonderful. And Cynthia, we'll kick it off to you. What are the qualifications that y'all look for before you set up a meeting, or what are the first steps that a founder should take?
The good news is with the SBDC, excuse me, it's allergy season in North Texas. With the SBDC, you just have to have an idea and be willing to sign what we call provide us basic information in our intake form and sign an agreement with us that you are going to work with us, and what we need back from you is just feedback so we can collect that information. So our grant partners, SBA, the school, and the state of Texas all know that we're actually doing something to help the communities that we're based in. That is the only requirement that is required to come to us for advising services. So we have clients that are just in the idea phase, and they want to do it right from the get-go and make sure that they've got a business plan. We talk through business planning, getting your finances in order, understanding startup capital, all of those things. And as Shane says, we get them ready, and then we go out and we line them up with financial partners.
Awesome. Well, wonderful. Well, thank you guys both for answering that. And Jeff, now to kick it off to you, what are the steps that students need to take to get into Mavs pitch? When is the next one? Are there any qualifications? What would help them be prepared for that?
Oh, that's a good question. We have two phases to the MAV pitch competition. So we have phase one each semester, and because the interest is so high, we decided to go virtual before we had to go virtual last year. So the first step is students have to prepare a 3-minute video pitch. So they can just do a video selfie, or they can produce something that looks quite nice. And then we take those videos and whittle those down to a dozen or so. And at the end of the semester, the students present their pitch live to a panel of judges. We select the winners for that phase. They get an award, and typically it's up to $15,000, but more importantly, they're invited to participate in phase two, which is in August, and they give a pitch to another panel of judges, and they have access to potentially $25,000. And that's it. I mean, it's quite easy. We have classes that students can enroll in the College of Business and the College of Engineering, but it's open to all students, and it's actually open to anyone as long as they have a student on their team.
Wonderful. And then, because I know not always it's common knowledge, but what kind of funding is that $15,000 or $25,000? You know, is it equity free? Do they need to pay it back? Are there certain things they need to do with the money?
That's perhaps the most fun part of it. It is cash. The intent, well, let me backtrack. We had a very generous alumni who is our benefactor, and we're allowed to give away cash. The intent, of course, is that they're going to use that cash to develop their business idea. But there's relatively no strings attached, so there's no equity involved. They don't have to pay it back. It's not a scholarship. It is cash. And $40,000 to me is a lot of money. And we've had several groups of students who've taken that. And I think we've had at least a half dozen pitches that have gone on to become cash flow positive businesses, which is real exciting. And I dare say that the MAV pitch helped them.
Wonderful. And so you kind of already asked my next question, but just to everybody here on the panel, the next question is, what are the types of dollar amounts that you normally work with or are the best to advise to work with, so that everybody in the room kind of has a good idea of that?
Do you mean as far as startup capital, or is this they need to have initially?
Yeah, let's say startup capital. So like, what is the best type of financial advising that you can work with? Are you working with the founder where they're starting off and they're looking for 10,000, or, can you start off with somebody who's just looking for $500 to buy perhaps like a printing press, for their business? What are the types of amounts that you work with, or do you work with all amounts?
Yeah, we actually have clients that come in and are actually doing R&D, or they're in the technology area where they are looking for large amounts of capital once they come in for their startup, because of course that's going to be that's all they're doing is testing. And then we have anything as far as a cosmetologist who's just wanting to make sure that she's set up as her own business, and she's looking at ways to make sure. So we can have somebody who's not looking at any capital, because their business is going to be more service related, to those that are in R&D or in the technology field where they're coming in and they're looking for $1 million, $2 million.
Wonderful. And Shane, at what point is First Financial the recommendation for a lender? What dollar amount is that range in?
Really, it's a case-by-case basis. It really kind of depends. And really, it's mainly due to figuring out how we can get an approval through the SBA. And I think the biggest piece of advice is, in terms of, if you're looking for a true dollar amount and it's related to debt, then it's something that you can handle, something that that you can sign your name at the bottom and say, I'm not going to be worried about this because either my business or something outside of my business will be able to take care of this. So I think rather than just giving a dollar amount, just anything that you feel comfortable with, that you are confident in, and you have projections and a good business plan and something like that can support it, so where both the bank and the SBA can get on board, then that's kind of where that will fall.
Wonderful. And Jeff, you already answered what kind of the varying degrees of the awards are at. You said the 15,000 and the 25,000. And I think one more time, does everybody get the 15,000 that wins in Mavs pitch? Is it broken down into different segments by what they're asking for? If they're going into Mavs pitch, like, what amount should they be asking for in their pitch? Give us a little bit of insight on that.
So we have limits on the phases. So for the first phase, it's a maximum of $15,000, and we've given several awards of $15,000, and we've given awards less than $15,000. And then phase two, it's up to $25,000, so a total of $40,000. Now, one of the exciting aspects, though, in addition to the awards from the actual competition, is that several of the participants have gotten additional funding, either from the judges. One group of students got funding from the actual benefactor because he was so impressed with their pitch. And then several students have gotten funds from contacts that they received from the judges, which was a direct consequence of the pitch. And we're talking about several $100,000 in many of the cases.
Awesome. Incredible. All right. And then I kind of have one more overarching question before I want to dive into everybody who's here's questions, because they're here because they're interested. So let's dive into those shortly. But my next question is for everybody here. In your opinion, what is the best advice you give entrepreneurs that are starting their funding journey? Anything that you've seen that has gone horribly wrong that you think they should avoid? Anything that you think has really set those that find success apart? Yeah, let's go into that. And let's see, whoever wants to start first.
Yeah, I'll kind of jump in on that. Really the biggest thing, and I think y'all already did a discussion on it, leveraging your network, but also growing your network and leveraging the free resources. I mean, what Jeff is talking about, like those are incredible opportunities, and being able to get involved in things like that is excellent. Being a part of Tech Fort Worth, just different incubators where you get to get a lot of knowledge. I mean, it's invaluable. So being able to leverage those, but also building relationships with external pillars of business. So every business, there's typically, 4 external pillars. You'll have a good accountant, an attorney, a banker, and like an insurance agent. That's kind of typically how it works. And if you can kind of start building those relationships as a startup before a company has even been formed, and you're able to, walk through all those different things, then as your business grows, as your company develops, and as your needs get bigger and bigger, then that conversation gets so much easier. And being able to, from my perspective as the banker in all of this, if I can watch a company grow, show that, hey, they've got all this deposit relationship and things like that, and then be able to, sign off on any kind of loan because I have confidence in knowing what this company is and being able to watch it grow from that point. It's very, very crucial, and because relationships are a big deal in business. So I think really leveraging your network and being able to build relationships with people that'll help grow your business at the very beginning is incredibly valuable.
Awesome. Great advice.
I think as business advisors, what we see a lot of times is the failure to think through your business. And that is why we really try to stress having a business plan, because Shane has mentioned it many times, projecting, forecasting. But a business plan also makes you think through why you're starting your business. Why do you even want to go there? You need to do feasibility. Is it feasible to even have this business? Is this going to be viable in the environment we're in the location you're in? So a business plan puts that together, as well as sales and marketing and all those things. So that's why we stress, planning when you're starting your business, doing the legwork, doing the research ahead of time, because once you've started your business and you're in the throes of it, it's really hard to go back and rethink that. And the other thing that we see is that those that do have a business plan, they fail to go back and review their business plan and actually use it as the tool it is. A business plan is a tool for the owner, the person who's starting this business. It's not, even though lenders require it, some lenders do, some lenders don't, but because it is required in a lot of cases, they feel like they're doing it for outside sources, but really the business plan is their tool. And it needs to be, especially when you're starting up, it needs to be reviewed at 6 months and revised and looked at least annually. So we see that as those two things as really being areas in which small businesses need to improve, especially small business owners that are starting up. If you can get that business plan done, think through, plan out, you're really ahead of the game in your business being successful in the long term.
I was on mute. Thank you. And Jeff, any advice that you've seen that leads to success or lessons learned that you've seen over the years when it comes to this?
Well, first I would echo what Shane and Cynthia mentioned. I think that's excellent advice. But I would add two things. I would add that entrepreneurs or nascent entrepreneurs need to be resilient, because I think if they have a good idea, you'll find the money or the money will find you, but you just need to be resilient and learn to accept no. The other piece of advice, and this one is because I just worked with someone not too recently, is I would discourage people to tap into their retirement to fund their business, whether to withdraw the cash or use it as collateral, because this individual tapped out his 401k and he had to declare bankruptcy. So now he has no business, nor does he have a retirement. So maybe that's the best piece of advice, but I think most of the participants in today's session are quite young, so you're probably not even thinking about retirement yet. For me, it hit pretty close to home.
Thank you for that. Yeah, and that's one of those things where unless you get the advice for it, there's just so many funding questions out there where you're like, should I not? What does this mean? What does this do? So I have already a couple more questions just from my background of going through fundraising and just looking for funds. So I'll save some of those for in between attendee questions. But let's start with everybody else who's in the room. If you're here attending, if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat or unmute yourself and ask. But the first question that came up, let's see, is from Patrick, and he asked, at what phase of idea development can you begin seeking funding, i.e. the idea stage, the prototype phase, feasibility, and we tapped on this, but let's just go back to it. Yes, because I think for each one of you, there might be different phases. Let's see, Jeff, go ahead, Shane. I'll let you start.
I was just gonna say, from the bank's perspective, since we're kind of limited to pretty much what we can get approved through the SBA in terms of debt, that would be the way that the bank would be able to fund. For us, it would just have to be pretty much towards the end. You've got everything planned out, you've got your projections and the products developed, you're ready to roll out. Basically, you just need X amount of dollars to have your working capital, have whatever fixed assets you need, that kind of thing. So that's on the bank side, but I know that the other areas are a little bit different.
One of the things we talk to our clients about is, the financial institutions is one avenue of funding, one source of funding. You also have investors. You have them through SBA, you have angel investors, you have other organizations. But that means as a business owner, you have to be willing to give up an interest in your business to receive that. And it really just depends on what you have put together before you seek that. But I will tell you, especially for SBA products, as Shane can concur, is that SBA and most lending institutions, irregardless of who they are, how they classify, they're going to look and see what investment have you made personally first in this business. So if you haven't invested anything personally into your business, it's going to be very, very difficult to go out there and have somebody else invest in it on your behalf.
Perfect. And then Jeff, I know you see kind of everything under the sun, I feel like, in Mavs pitch from idea to later stage, but is there anything that you've seen from the last competition was there a particular stage of company that saw more funding than others? If you've looked at that.
No, I don't think there's a discernible trend. Now, just the nature of the beast, many of our, if not most of our pitches or the students are still at the ideation stage. And in some respects, that's ideal because we'd really like to see them use those funds to take it from the ideation stage to perhaps a prototype or at least helping prepare their business plan. But having said that, we've had a couple of students that were award winners that had actually started their business. So they were beyond just the ideation stage.
Wonderful. And Michael, I see that your hand is raised. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt or whatnot. But hi, everybody. I had a pretty unique question. My business is focusing around ticket scalping, and so I've already spent money, should I say, trying to patent. I filed for a patent for the idea. It's on in the app in the phone, and I'm kind of like in the R&D stage of trying to, get it to work because, of course, I'm not a techie guy, right? So, but it's not going to cost much for me to actually get it off the ground if I can just prove the concept works, which I know it can. But of course, I'm not a techie guy. Um, if I already filed the patent, is there some things I need to protect as far as not like releasing too much information when I'm looking for funding in that sense? Because I guess I'm gonna try to get the funding and have somebody else build it professionally before I release it out to market. And it's just an app on a phone, right? So it could be maybe 50,000, maybe 100,000, because the platform I'm gonna work with, as far as choosing your tickets like Ticketmaster already wants to work with me in that sense. But I just want to know, like, I guess from everybody's perspective here, I should have thought about this when I was at UTA in '09, but didn't. But yeah, I guess what kind of things will I need to look out for as far as protecting, my actual invention idea, that patent, when it comes to funding, not giving out, I guess, too much information or equity.
Yeah, I don't honestly, to be completely honest with you, I'm not entirely too sure. So I'm going to defer to Cynthia and Jeff on that one. But that's the positive of having multiple brains in the room, having multiple connections and everything like that. If one person doesn't know, you just keep going down and figure out who does, So that's my deferring to you guys.
Well, Michael, my best piece of advice is to hone your, and this is going to sound cliche, but I would hone your pitch. I would come up with maybe a 30-second description of your business idea, and not necessarily give away the proprietary knowledge, but just to be able to convince someone that you meet maybe at Starbucks who might be interested in helping you, whether investing in your business or helping you some other way. So I think that's really one of the first things I would encourage you to do, is just to hone that pitch so you nail it at the spur of the moment and you can talk about it. I always tell my students and the folks that I work with is, don't be too concerned about revealing your technology. And this is one thing that kills me with our students in particular, because they're very, very secretive about their idea. But if it's your idea and you've thought through it, even if someone does hear about it, you're several steps ahead of them. So, you have the first mover advantage. So I would err on the reveal side, if you will. So I wouldn't be too concerned about revealing my secrets in fear of someone's going to beat me to the punch. Those are my 2 cents.
Okay, I appreciate that, because I got Hayden actually with Tech Fort Worth reviewing my business plan, and I was going to start shooting it out to everybody, so I didn't know how that was going to work. But I appreciate the info and the knowledge. Thank you.
And I was just going to add, Jeff's absolutely right. The other thing I would add is, anytime you're dealing with a financial institution or the SBDC, you have a confidentiality with those people you're working with. So those types of organizations are not going to release any of your information to anybody, because especially at the SBDC, that's one of the forms you're signing, is it serves as a confidentiality agreement. So anything you were to share with our office would definitely not be shared. So if you're dealing with sources like that, you don't need to be concerned about that. Plus, when you're looking for funding, if that's the route you're going, funders don't want all the technical. They want to know what you're going to do with this. As Shane repeated over and over, they're going to look at your projections. Where is your business going to go? What are you going to do with this? That's what they're more concerned about, not so much the technology. That's going to be if you're looking for very specific investing, going through organizations who need that kind of information. But just on the top side, people aren't really going to be looking for that information.
Thank you all.
Yeah, and I'll just add in one thing that I've seen over the years at Tech Fort Worth, working with Hayden and seeing some of the questions that he gets is, with an organization, at least from my perspective at Tech Fort Worth, that's trying to help and give advice. yeah, they're not trying to steal anything. Definitely do your due diligence on who you're sending what information to. But we sometimes call it the secret sauce. And yeah, there's a lot you can reveal about your company and your plan without revealing the technology or the patent or the specifics behind it. So yeah, I just keep that in mind. But great question. And definitely Hayden is a great resource for that as well. He's worked with a good amount of people in the area. So if you're ever worried, feel free to send a note about, hey, so-and-so asked to see the secret sauce. Is that good to send? So you can definitely rely on that. But hi, Amy, I saw your hand raised.
Hey there. So I do. And oddly enough, it has nothing to do with my employer. It has to do with my own business. And so I have a question. So say there's a piece of like manufacturing that you're currently outsourcing, but you want to figure out how to do it internally. And this is for any of you, maybe even, UTA. Where would you go to look for someone to help you like figure out like the machinery that you need, or maybe even create something that can make the thing that you need to make?
Yeah.
Like, is that an engineering student thing? I mean, like, where can we go to do some of that kind of research?
This is embarrassing because I forgot the name of the entity, but I think Terry Schultz is on here, so maybe she can help me. But UTA has a manufacturing entity that I think focuses on exactly what you're talking about, engineering the manufacturing process.
Yeah, you're talking about Tmac, Jeff?
Yes, thank you.
The Texas Manufacturing Assistance Center, Tmac, is located in the center. It's called the Center for Innovation Building. It's at 202 East Border Street, just like a block east of Center and UTA Boulevard.
So how does like a business owner connect with someone like that to move their idea forward?
I think you just need to contact Tmac and they'll connect you to the right person.
And then they tell you how expensive the equipment's going to be, and then you go work on the loan process.
They can help you figure out how it needs to be manufactured and solve manufacturing.
Fantastic. That's awesome. That's exciting. I would love these local, students.
They're not free.
Yeah. and one thing we can add to that is that, and Lauren, I can let you hit on it if you want.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to give a shameless plug because our accelerator and incubator at Tech Fort Worth, if you join it, then you get Tmac credits for free. I say that in quotes because our program isn't free, but it comes with it. So that's another option as well.
Yeah, I think, what is it, 10,000 credits?
Mm-hmm. $10,000 worth of credit for, if you're in Think Lab, $1,000 program, So, yeah.
Good deals all around.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Let's see. And I see another hand raised. I'm trying to get to the list of participant names. Tublo, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah. Hey, guys. Thanks for having me. I'm with Audius, and we're building Geedom together. Kind of an oddball question for you guys, but generally trying to understand how Tech Fort Worth and the community here would see it. So in terms of issuing equity for our organization, what is the thoughts about issuing an ERC20 token as sort of the security of the company, and then paying a net dividend on sort of 30% or X% of profit of the net operating income from our market intelligence SaaS offering as sort of our approach to equity financing and raising capital?
Very specific question. I am not our finance person at Tech Fort Worth, nor do I advise on it. Does anybody else on the panel have any advice before I give a potential answer? Okay. So with that specific advising, I would say definitely get a couple different people's opinions on it. I know Hayden sees at Tech Fort Worth, he sees a little bit behind the scenes of that kind of slicing up of the pie and everything like that. So I would say maybe send us an email and we can try to get you connected for that specific question.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah. Sorry, if Hayden was on right now, I would have a definite answer for you of what type of direction to point you in for that. But that is very hyper specific to your organization. And yeah, Lauren, do you have something you want to add to that?
Oh, I was just going to echo that. Yeah, that's something, not me, but Hayden could probably answer in a second. And that's the bonus of having educated coaches, because they get stuff like that all the time and they're able to say like, oh my gosh, do not do that, or absolutely, that's a good, they're able to know right off the bat. So
yeah,
that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, what's industry standards and stuff like that. So good question though, and happy that you're at that stage. That's really exciting. Okay. Additional questions, anybody? Okay, so one question that I have that I know when I was starting my company, so we went kind of the competition route to get our funding and have been just barely touching off of that and bootstrapping for the last 2 years. So when it comes to fundraising, how early should somebody come to you before they need those funds? Should they be looking 6 months out? Should they be looking 2 years out? Any advice you have on that?
Yeah, I think I'll kind of chime in for the bank side. It's really just kind of dependent on what the funds will be used for, obviously, and when, and basically the timing. So when going through the SBA 7A program, let's just start with that one. There's a lot of different things you have to go through. There's different approvals that you'll have to get from the bank to start off with, then the SBA, and then making sure all of that meshes together. So in terms of actually say that you have a set date of you're ready to get funding through the SBA and you need something ready to go, if you did that 45 days, 60 days before, just to make sure that you can get the approvals and everything kind of in motion, that is kind of how that works on our end. Not saying the SBA takes that long, but kind of gathering going through the checklist and the all the requirements to be able to get that kind of a loan can take a little bit of legwork. So typically the 45 to 60 days, if that's kind of what we're looking at, then that's kind of the safe route.
And I was just going to say, if you're looking for a lending product, especially if you're going to go the loan route, you don't want to get it too far in advance of when you need it, because you're going to be paying interest on those funds that you're sitting on. And as you know, with a small business, especially in that young or that startup phase, every penny counts. So if you have money going out in interest because you're not ready to really utilize those funds, you're really not getting the return that you can on that. And you're paying out that interest, those pennies in interest or dollars, whatever it equates to, depending on what you're getting. So the way when I'm advising my clients, we are working through projections, we're planning, we're revising, we're watching, we're planning far enough ahead that we're going to try to get that funding when we really need it. And at that point, then you're able to utilize those funds for exactly what you're going to need them for, and you have a better understanding of what your return is going to be on those funds.
I would just add that it's good to develop a relationship with your banker. So there's a little due diligence involved to find out which banks tend to be more receptive to small businesses. I personally bank with Chase, and I've just learned from experience that Chase is not the most friendly banker to the small business community. So it's important, I think, to find which bank, and it seems like Shane's bank would be a good option. But you want to find a bank that has a reputation for dealing with small businesses. And I would even go as far as to say it wouldn't be a bad idea to open up a checking account or some way to develop a relationship with the individuals in that bank.
So we got 2 questions, 2 hand raised. So let's start with Aries. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, so I just had a quick question, and whoever can answer it will answer it. Is how do you guys go about helping business owners value their company? So, everybody has a different idea, different stages. Like, how do you guys set a value and then assist in raising that target?
I personally use a capitalized earnings approach. I'm assuming you have earnings, so if you can figure out what your projected earnings are, I would just figure out what's the appropriate multiple. And from what I gather, I think that's a pretty standard approach.
Awesome. Yep, we got some head nods. And then I know if you want more education on valuations and valuating your business like that, we had a speaker maybe up to 3 years ago. I'm recalling this, but I can try to find the video for that, and maybe we can link it in the Teams for this. But yeah, definitely valuation, and there's whole companies that can help you evaluate, and there's different methods you can look at. But yeah, the one Jeff mentioned, I think is one of the standard ones.
And even if you're not familiar with that, that's where it kind of comes back into, if you've got a good relationship with an accountant, they're going to be the ones who can kind of at least kind of springboard you into, okay, this is how I need to structure it. This is how I need to come to that final number.
Definitely. And then if you're looking at just from the perspective of, because I work on Cowtown Angels with Hayden as well, one of the biggest kind of red flags for angel investors when they're looking at who gets funds is if the valuation is too high, and they're industry experts on different industries. And so if that expert knows that that valuation is too high, I would definitely be aware of that. So definitely do your due diligence when it comes to that. But I'll try to get you more information because I know that's very broad. Yeah. Let's see. And I know, is your hand still raised, or did you have another add-on to that question?
I had another question.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Was the other person speaking? I'm done.
Okay, he put his hand down. Nope, you're good.
Okay. Oh yeah, my other question, as far as micro lending goes, is that something that the SBDC does, or is that something the bank does, or is that just a separate entity I was looking into?
So the SBDC is just an advising body. So we advise, we do have partners, we have partnerships with as many resource partners as we possibly can. I mean, we work with UTA, we help spread the word on the programs they provide. We actually do some joint advising with Tech Fort Worth. Of course, we have our whole slew of lenders. Micro lending, you have to find a lender, and we help match those lenders because they're very specific lenders for micro loans. And so we do that. That is part of the advising and the service we provide. But part of what our organization does is just work with the community as a whole and build relationships and partnerships with a lot of organizations. I'm from the Chicago area, and I will tell you, I've been in Dallas for a while and now working in the Fort Worth community. I wish that I had the type of resources that were available to our Tarrant County businesses at any point in time. And so I had a consulting firm once upon a time before I had children, and I had clients all over the country and did not have hardly any of these resources were available. So, I mean, if you're starting a business, this is the place and the time to do it because the resources in Tarrant County are absolutely amazing. And if you are doing a small business, involved in government contracting. UTA has a whole nother area that works with government contracting, tons of resources. And so we help tap into those and help kind of connect the dots sometimes. So we are in a very unique position, and we love the position we're in, but we are strictly advising and count on all our resource partners to really help a business in whatever phase they're in.
Okay, thank you. I'm definitely gonna need your contact information. So.
Well, perfect. And that kind of leads us into the next question is, for all of our panelists, I definitely want you, in between speaking, if you could drop, whatever contact information you want available to people, so that they know how to take advantage of your resource and how to get connected, whether that be your website or, if you go straight to email. If you could drop that in the chat for everybody in between answering this question. But do you have any financial literacy, either books or TED Talks or videos that you point people in the direction when they're starting off their funding journey? Any websites, stuff like that, where you would say, here's some of the lingo you're going to need to know. Definitely read such and such.
Yeah, mine is pretty funny. Whenever I was preparing for this talk, I was thinking, oh man, I remember the first time that I stepped foot in an SBDC office and was going to a meeting and like listening to everything. And I was like, I can't believe that something like this is available to people for free. So that's my answer. Just going to a SBDC, going to just the different incubators that you can find. But really, and sorry, Cynthia, that's probably what you were going to end up talking about, but the SBDC is an incredible, valuable tool that is available for everyone. And that's kind of typically if someone has an idea that we're like, hey, stay in contact with us, but go to the SBDC, they'll help you advise and get everything built and ready to go.
I was just going to say the SBDC hosts, so you can go to Tarrant SBDC to our website, and we host a Start Your Business class. We also partner with Tish Dodge, and she is an attorney that specializes in small business, and she does a conference call. So if you have just brief questions, you're able to hop onto that call and jump in. And then, like I said, a lot of times when UTA is providing classes on introduction classes or whatever, we get those emails and then we broadcast those out to all of our clients in our client base. So we tap into all of those things, but we also host webinars. We have a training schedule on our website as well. And so we do everything we can to just help people get those resources they need.
I have several resources that I use, but I think they're probably too numerous to rattle them all off. But to be honest with you, it's so easy just to Google to answer specific questions. The one thing that I probably rely on more, though, is an Excel spreadsheet package that one of my colleagues in California created. I believe he calls it the Newton Financial Planner, but it's a very nice, very simple to use spreadsheet that allows you to calculate your break-even point, your variable fixed costs. It's just a marvelous little software package, and it's just an Excel spreadsheet, but he has all of the equations embedded. So that's something that I can share if people would like it.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And I know one thing that I wanted to mention is a book that I read during my undergrad, right before I started looking for funding. It was called Get Backed. And that book is also one of the books that we talk about at Tech Fort Worth in our accelerator program. So I'll put a link to it in just a second, but that is an awesome book. Jeff, people are definitely saying share that Excel spreadsheet. So we would love to get that in the Teams. And I think we have a reading list in Teams as well. So we can go and drop some of those resources. But I think I saw another raised hand.
Yeah. Hey, to follow again. Another specific one, and just more curious and kind of the on the networking side of this is would anyone here on the panel or any contacts within the Tech Fort Worth community have any sort of folks familiar with building balance sheets, primarily focus on IP and intangible assets?
I'm wondering, hey Lauren, if you're still on the call, I'm wondering, do we have a coach at Tech Fort Worth who focuses on that?
I'm not certain actually, so we'll have to circle back.
Yeah, I know when I was going through that process and I had that question, our assistant, our past assistant director, now client success manager, Kathy Trin, who used to work over at SBDC, and so she relies on her knowledge from back in that day advising, but she has some Excel sheets that she uses to advise, but I think she would also potentially point you towards Cynthia, I believe.
Yeah, I think in our office, our business advisors come from all varying backgrounds. And so we do have an advisor who is in that accounting world, and that's what he does. He does a lot of Excel spreadsheets and does advising there. So we can also get you in contact with him and see if he can help you out with what you need.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it. I'll be in contact.
Awesome. And one thing that I would add to that is that we do have, so she was the previous executive director of Tech Fort Worth. She's currently the CFO, and she does fractional CFO work for clients if they reach out and they want to, create that partnership with her. But Darlene Boudreau at Tech Fort Worth, she's CPA and has an incredible background that I would not do justice to talking about her right now, but I know she does do some coaching to some of our clients that are specifically in the tech realm on that. So definitely some resources. I would say, yeah, you definitely have a good list of people that you could reach out to about that.
Cool. Excited to meet more techie Fort Worth natives.
Woo! I know, it's a fun community. We love it.
And Devin, I just want to make a comment. If I know a lot of people can't see the chat, so if there's any specific links that you want, email me, or you can go back in through Teams. And in our meeting, it records the meeting, but it also saves that transcript of our comments. So hopefully y'all can access all these great resources because there's a lot of them. But if there's anything specific, just email me.
Wonderful. Yeah, and I know we're getting down to our stopping point, but I'm going to open the floor one last time to our panelists. Are there any parting words that you would like to give before we end the panel today?
I would just repeat what I said earlier about resilience. Entrepreneurship is an incredibly exciting vocation, and for those of you that are pursuing it, you just need to be resilient. And if you get knocked down, jump back up and keep going. It's a fun journey.
And I would just reiterate as well that planning, doing your homework up front, making sure you have a good solid foundation is a great place to start your journey.
Build relationships early and often, and really just never be afraid to, and you're all entrepreneurs, so you're not afraid about it anyway, but don't be afraid to put yourself out there and ask questions, and just the more knowledge you can get, the better.
Wonderful. Well, Shane, Cynthia, Jeff, thank you guys so much for being here today and sharing all your wisdom and stories and advice for everybody here. Looking at next week, Courtney, I believe, is next week the week where we have an alumni coming back to talk about the good, the bad, the messy of starting your venture.
Yes, so that will be next week, and that will actually be our final meeting before we have our networking event. So we're going to end the semester this year with a networking event. So join us next week, get some insight on on the good, the bad, and the messy of starting your own business.
And that's going to be moderated by Scott Parsonen, who's right here on camera. Thank you, Scott. We're looking forward to that session next week.
Yes. And then stay tuned for our networking. And if you guys want to see any topics presented at EpICMavs, please let me.
Oh, her audio cut out.
The next fall.
Yeah, let Courtney know any topics that you want coming up. Scott, we're so excited to have you next week. Thank you so much. And Shane, Cynthia, Jeff, thank you for being here. Wonderful. Scott, do you want to give a little bit of a preview for next week? I know I just saw you on.
Yeah, no, this is a nice session, really, with some fantastic entrepreneurs and that came together during Global Entrepreneurship Week. It's a great topic. Like Jeff said, it's spot on. Entrepreneurship is a ride. Be ready for the ups and downs and everything in between. So it's exciting. And everybody, I thought the panel was spot on today. Do your legwork. Make sure you have a solid foundation, and so you don't have such a messy part of your ride. Hopefully, it's all rainbows and unicorns and all that good stuff. But there are bumps along the way. So that's what we'll talk about next week.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful afternoon, and we'll see you next week.